Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren held up two emails in a congressional hearing. The first showed Jeffrey Epstein describing a woman as a civilian, Russian, and fun. The second showed Epstein writing to New York Giants owner Steve Tisch about a Ukrainian girl. According to the email, there were concerns about age difference, and Epstein writing he would convince her not to return to Ukraine. He then told Tisch to call him, adding, "I don't like records of these conversations." Lofgren asked Attorney General Pam Bondi one simple question. Does this constitute credible evidence warranting further investigation into Steve Tisch? Yes or no? Bondi refused to answer. Instead, she called Donald Trump the greatest president in American history and attacked Lofgren personally about campaign donations. Watch what happens when a congresswoman asks the Attorney General to do her job and gets a loyalty pledge to the president instead. Let me tell you who Zoe Lofgren is. She represents California's 18th district. She's been in Congress since 1995. Before that, she worked as a law professor and practiced immigration law. She's not a bomb thrower. She's methodical. She asks specific questions. She presents documents, and she expects answers. On February 11th, 2026, Lofgren appeared at a House Judiciary Committee oversight hearing. Attorney General Pam Bondi was testifying about the Epstein files. The hearing had been running for hours. Democrats had pressed Bondi on redactions, on the DOJ's refusal to charge anyone connected to Epstein, on the department's credibility. Bondi had deflected every question. But when Lofgren's turn came, she had something specific, 2 emails. And she wasn't asking for analysis or interpretation. She was asking for a yes or no answer. Does this evidence warrant investigation? It's the simplest oversight question Congress can ask, and Bondi couldn't answer it. Lofgren opened by acknowledging the Epstein survivors sitting in the gallery. Out of respect for the American public and the Epstein survivors, some of whom are here today, I want us to have a transparent conversation and get the public the answers they deserve. She directed attention to 2 documents. In the first, an individual emails Jeffrey Epstein asking whether a woman identified as M was pro or civilian, and Epstein responds that she was a civilian, Russian, and fun. The email uses the terms pro or civilian when discussing the woman. The second email was more direct. Epstein writes to Steve Tisch about a Ukrainian girl, and that Epstein would try to convince her not to return to Ukraine. He then instructs Mr. Tisch to call him, adding, "I don't like records of these conversations." Let that sit for a moment. Epstein writing about convincing someone not to return to Ukraine, and then the instruction, "Call me. I don't like records of these conversations." That's not casual correspondence. That's someone who knows what they're doing needs to stay off the record. Lofgren asked the question. I'd like to ask a straightforward question that really is either a yes or no answer. Do these emails constitute credible evidence, not proof, but credible evidence warranting further investigation into whether Steve Tisch was involved in Epstein's criminal conduct? Yes or no? Notice the precision. She's not asking if Tisch is guilty. She's not asking for charges to be filed. She's asking if the emails constitute credible evidence warranting further investigation. That's an oversight question. That's what Congress is supposed to ask. And here's how Bondi responded. I'm not going to play a yes-no game with you, but I will answer the question to the best of my ability. As I said, we will look and investigate any case involving any victim. I'm not familiar with that email. There were 3 million pages, of course, but of course we will look into anything. Not a yes, not a no, a deflection. Lofgren tried to push back. I only have 5 minutes. Bondi kept talking. The documents have been released. 3 million, the redacted versions, we left them open for all of you to come view. Lofgren cut her off. I'm not being rude. I only have 5 minutes, Bondi continued, and I only have 30 seconds based on your filibuster. The exchange was tense. Bondi was running out the clock, and Lofgren called her on it. You didn't give a yes or no answer. Lofgren moved to the next point, and this is where the contradiction became undeniable. Director Patel testified in this committee room that there was no credible information indicating that Epstein trafficked victims to anyone else. And glancing at the documents, that proves that's not the case. Director Kash Patel had testified that there was no credible information Epstein trafficked victims to other individuals. But the emails Lofgren just showed directly contradict that. Epstein writing to Steve Tisch, discussing individuals using terms like pro or civilian. That's evidence of involving others. Either Patel lied or the DOJ didn't look at the evidence they had. Lofgren continued, "In July, your department issued a memo stating that it had conducted an exhaustive review of the Epstein files and concluded that no additional individuals would be charged. Exhaustive review, no additional charges. But Lofgren went to the DOJ and reviewed the files herself. I did go over to the Department of Justice yesterday. I would note that there are 435 members in the House, and there are 4 computers, so it would take many months to actually have the time. I only had a few hours. 435 members of Congress, 4 computers. Lofgren called it what it is. I think the transparency argument is really kind of a sham because it's not really possible to go in. But in the few hours she had, Lofgren found something. I did see a U.S. attorney information for the Southern District of New York indicating that there were additional survivors and probable co-conspirators. Other members of Congress have uncovered likely co-conspirators whose names were blocked out. Additional survivors, probable co-conspirators, blocked out names. The DOJ claimed they did an exhaustive review and found no one else to charge. But members of Congress, in just a few hours with limited access, found evidence of co-conspirators whose names were redacted. Lofgren pointed to the law. The Epstein Files Transparency Act, which all but one member of this House voted for and the president signed, requires the department to release everything except what needs to be redacted to protect the victims or an ongoing prosecution, which apparently there is none from the testimony we have received. I am concerned that this act has not been fully complied with. And then Lofgren dropped the bombshell. When Director Patel came to the committee, he admitted that up to 1,000 FBI agents had gone through the files and redacted President Trump's name from them. 1,000 FBI agents, working to scrub Trump's name from the Epstein files. It's pretty clear that what has been transmitted from the FBI continues to redact President Trump's name, even though he is mentioned thousands of times in these files. Trump's name appears thousands of times in the Epstein files, and the FBI deployed 1,000 agents to redact it. Lofgren's conclusion was direct. I think the credibility of the department in terms of complying with the act has been damaged, and I think the department's credibility has been damaged in other ways. Lofgren moved to another credibility issue. I think we all saw the horrible video of American citizens being killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis. And I think how the department has handled these cases raises a lot of doubt about the department. She laid out the facts. State and local police in Minnesota got a court order to get access to the crime scene to be sure evidence would be properly preserved by federal agents. But the agents defied the court order. And in a departure from general policy, DOJ is not collaborating with state and local law enforcement on these homicides. Federal agents defied a court order. The DOJ is not cooperating with local law enforcement on homicides of American citizens. Lofgren's assessment was blunt. I really think that is a disgraceful approach to the homicides of American citizens and really does nothing to bring credit to your department. She yielded back. And then Bondi asked to respond. Bondi didn't address the Steve Tisch emails. She didn't address the contradiction with Patel's testimony. She didn't address the 1,000 FBI agents redacting Trump's name. She didn't address the ICE killings. She attacked Lofgren personally. I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump, the greatest president in American history. That was her opening. The greatest president in American history. I find it interesting she keeps going after Donald Trump. She doesn't say how much money she took from Reid Hoffman. Reid Hoffman, a Democratic donor. Bondi was accusing Lofgren of being funded by partisan interests. Nothing on her Twitter account during the Biden years. This wasn't a response to oversight questions. This was a personal attack. Lofgren tried to invoke a point of order. The witness, without responding to a question, has attacked me personally. The chairman pushed back, but Lofgren finished her point. I think it's pathetic that she can't answer the questions and instead attacks. Pathetic, that's the word she used. Because it was. Here's what Zoe Lofgren exposed in that hearing. The Department of Justice has emails showing Jeffrey Epstein discussing individuals with Steve Tisch. One email specifically mentions concerns about age difference and Epstein writing that he would try to convince someone not to return to Ukraine. Epstein told Tisch to call him because I don't like records of these conversations. When asked if this constitutes credible evidence warranting investigation, the Attorney General refused to answer yes or no. She claimed she wasn't familiar with the email despite it being in the files her department released. Director Kash Patel testified that there was no credible information Epstein trafficked victims to anyone else. The emails Lofgren showed proved that testimony was false. The DOJ issued a memo claiming an exhaustive review concluded no additional individuals would be charged. But members of Congress found evidence of co-conspirators in just hours of review. The Epstein Files Transparency Act required the DOJ to release everything except victim information and details of ongoing prosecutions. Instead, the DOJ exposed victim identities while redacting the names of powerful men. And according to Patel's own testimony, 1,000 FBI agents were deployed to redact President Trump's name from files where he is mentioned thousands of times. Zoe Lofgren asked one question: does this evidence warrant investigation? Pam Bondi couldn't answer. Instead, she called Trump the greatest president in American history and attacked Lofgren's campaign donors. The Attorney General of the United States, when presented with evidence involving a billionaire, chose loyalty to the president over accountability to the law. The survivors sitting in that hearing room saw it. The members of Congress documented it. And the American people deserve to know it. Subscribe to the Patel Today for daily political analysis. Because this story isn't over. The Steve Tisch emails are in the public record. The refusal to investigate is documented, and the credibility of the Department of Justice has been damaged in ways that can't be fixed with deflection.